Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. It's me, Heidi. Now, on the agenda tonight is LGBT plus highlights from 2020 as the year closes to an end. Now, joining me tonight is a channel friend, Trans-Atheist. Good evening, welcome.
Good evening, I'm glad to be here once again.
Yes, for those who do not know who you are, and those who didn't watch the live stream where you were on my channel, shame on you. If you didn't, now could you introduce yourself?
Yeah, so I'm Trans-Atheist, run my own YouTube channel covering mostly religious topics, but every now and then I do cover trans issues.
Thank you very much. Now, perhaps we can start from one of the most perhaps burning topics we've had recently regarding LGBT plus highlights is of course Elliot Page. Now, the media has been going all over this. Elliot coming out as trans, and we all of us love her or loved her or hated her, and now love him, hate him because he dares to be who he is. Those people who gave him hate cannot accept that he is he now, and I think we have seen that there has been what media has given him is quite nice. It's quite it's gentle and kind. I would have expected something a lot more harsh, given the circumstances. Because whenever there are these TERFs who always come, who've been going all over about, what was it like? Why do all those butch lesbians come out, turn out or become trans as if they weren't trans before?
Exactly.
But Elliot wasn't exactly very butch before, so I can't quite understand their problem. What do you think is what was your first reaction to Elliot coming out?
I thought it was good for the, especially obviously in America. So the issues over there needs to be a hell of a lot more coverage over, especially celebrities coming out, because the way our society works at the moment is, if say me or you come out, doesn't really make much of a difference to the overall societal view of trans people and trans issues. But a celebrity comes out now, that can make big changes further down the line. So someone as big as Elliot coming out is a big stepping stone in for trans rights, and as you mentioned before, the media, they would usually slate someone in Elliot's position for doing what he's done. But this time they've actually been rather nice about it, and that's a good sign for the future of trans rights.
Yes, I think so too, because now that we've obviously we've seen cases where this hasn't gone as smoothly as with Elliot, and I think that has given many I ha- yeah, I was having something with the connection. Anyway, um, yeah, I think the way that media, uh, whether it be either traditional media or this so, social media platforms handle these, have a huge effect on both adult and young trans people struggling, because in a way the press and social media handle this, as well as people on the social media platforms talk about this, will affect the trans people,
Exactly.
as well, both both those who are have already been transitioned, uh, as well as then those who are in transition, and as well as those who are in the closet. It will affect, but seeing the change, or this change starting to happen, probably, I truly hope it will change. This will change something,
Yeah.
at least somewhere.
Even if it just changes people's views slightly about it, makes it a little bit more acceptable.
Exactly.
Each small change is going to be one stepping stone forward to the future that we all want to see.
Exactly. Um, as I talked about this, what small changes affecting future. We last week on my stream about gender diverse activism. It doesn't have to be big. It doesn't have to be anything big to do it, but
No.
to make a change you want to see in the world. But in this case, the media has done a great service to the trans community, and I do not know as to why. I have no idea as to why this happens like this, because I think this is unprecedented.
Yeah, usually the media is terrible with things like this, and they always go for the support of the majority. But this one time they've decided to go in support of the minority, and it's weird how that happens. But you've got to be thankful when it does.
Yes, indeed. Then next up, I think we can take from my list, um, a bit further from earlier this year. French Senate approved a bill allowing IVF for single women and lesbian couples. So I think this is huge, huge news, in my opinion, because this is a step forward. Because no, as I understand it, we had some sort of similar legislation in Finland uh, come in not long ago, but I could be mistaken. There's been at least talk of it, but that this kind of news coming from a country that is predominantly Catholic and
Oh, yeah,
has traditionally been predominantly Catholic, and there were, according to the articles I read uh, from different news sites, there were huge protests from conservative Christians and others uh, opposing this ruling. So it's in a way that is from a coming from a country predominantly Catholic country.
yeah,
A
and that
decision like this.
it's big news as well because it's it's stories like this which are going to have repercussions throughout politics within Europe, especially from a
Exactly.
country, as you say, which is predominantly Catholic. It's also one of the biggest countries in Europe, and if it's successful in a country like France, then there's a good chance that it's going to get passed in other countries within Europe.
Yes. I believe but it's always so that if one big country on a continent or a subcontinent uh, does something like this, it will have, if not immediate, but maybe repercussions with a delay. But there will be, I think it's called butterfly effect.
Yeah,
But this will have um, effect. I think it will show the way, for at least for other predominantly Catholic countries. What
yeah,
France did.
exactly. And it might only it might only be small changes that you see happening in other countries where bills like this start getting put onto the political manifestos and that. But over time, that will
Yes.
eventually uh, come into the
Yeah, I
mainstream
guess.
politics.
Yeah, yeah. So I think we could now go to a bit darker issues, to Hungary and
Ooh.
Poland, restricting and limiting LGBT plus human rights and adding oppression. The possibility to transition has been um, diminished greatly, and been made practically impossible in many instances, and making it really tough to be an LGBT plus person in these countries. But and family and the new Hungarian constitution redefines what is a family and restricts or limits the gay adoption. Uh, the the new amendment to the constitution defines family, the word family, a union between a man and a woman and their offspring. And when I really don't want to go turn into politics on this, because it's not just politics. It's these dipshits redefining words
Yeah,
that have been somewhat appropriately defined prior to these events.
yeah.
What's
So
your own take on
sometimes
it?
it feels like it's easy to look at all the nice things that are happening for trans rights
Mm-hmm.
around the world. But you do need to always keep an eye out for the areas in the world where it's clear that countries are taking a step back, and it's important for the trans right movement that we continue to keep putting our resources and keep putting our efforts into dealing with countries like this that are clearly taking steps backwards, and making sure that there's enough resources being plumbed into fighting against the injustices in those areas.
Yeah, and we've had the Council of Europe and all the European Union agencies taking their stand pro LGBT plus, which is wonderful. But
Yeah,
there are still these stubborn countries, and more specifically, their top-notch politicians, because we can't blame these changes to the people of these countries, because it's not automatically it's not their fault. They're just being conned to vote for these people, who
exactly.
then uh, do stuff like this.
Now, obviously, you keep mentioning the Catholic Church and that, so religion's one of my areas, and um, it's actually quite interesting how you were mentioning that the Catholic Church is making some it is making some changes pro LGBT, which is quite important because it was the Catholic faith, it was the religion itself, which um, is giving us giving these countries like Poland and Hungary and that these ideas of a man and a woman must be
Hmm.
is the only way to have a family and all of this. So it's quite important that religion is slowly starting to change and favour LGBT issues. And it'll
Yes,
take a
and
while, as it
yeah,
always does with religion. Religion is very slow on the uptake for things, but
yeah. Many of these countries I have on my list are very religious. Have been traditionally for a very long time. Uh, from this, we can kind of go. Um, you may to an item on my list that I found um, from sources. I found that Pope Francis indicates support for civil union for same-sex couples. However, the Vatican Secretariat of State takes it back in an explanatory note. Uh, the Pope Francis, uh, the Secretariat of State from Vatican, uh, tried to explain it away by this, where Pope said this was on a documentary on camera, so they can't just say Pope said this to a reporter, face to face, no witnesses. It's on tape, but Vatican in their explanatory notes um, tried to explain it away by claiming it's the bit where Pope said that was edited, put together from two or three different parts of the film, which, according to what I read, is bullshit. So what Pope Francis said is, quote unquote, homosexual people have a right to be in a family. They are children of God and have a right to a family. Nobody should be thrown out or be made miserable over it,
yeah.
says Pope Francis in 2020. I think this was filmed in a couple of years ago, but
Yeah.
this rose up a year or two ago. This was filmed, but
Yeah.
this is quite big.
It is big. And my thoughts on it
They
would be that
they yeah they did this explanatory note, or took it back. The Vatican, I think it was the same Secretariat of State from Vatican, uh, when they ran into trouble when Pope Benedict XVI showed, uh, directly said it's okay to use condoms if in certain situations. That's
mm,
allowed to use. The Catholics are allowed to use condoms and others as well in certain circumstances, such as preventing HIV.
yeah,
And then, of course Vatican, when it's a panic mode, and kind of took it back.
I mean, it's not good that obviously it's that the Vatican are overruling what he's saying here and going back, but the fact that a pope is willing to say these things, like using condoms is correct and it's the right of everyone, whether you're heterosexual or homosexual, to have a family. It's good that that someone as high up as the Pope is willing to say those things in public. It shows that there
Yeah,
is slow changes that are happening, and it may take a few generations yet for religion to get on board, but it's happening. You can see the
yes,
small ripples that are going to affect change in the future.
yes, yeah, indeed. And I think my firm belief, and there was in this, from example, from Reuters, there was some indication of that from the time when Francis was still an archbishop,
Mm.
in his home country, that he was promoting something, something along these lines, being in being involved in some sort of pro LGBT plus activities, or some pro bono activities, back in the day when he was still an archbishop.
Yeah,
So I believe these are his personal beliefs. These
yeah,
aren't Vatican dogma. I believe these are their current pope's personal opinions.
and the fact that he had those opinions before he was elected pope, um, that shows that there was people that there was other cardinals, other archbishops, and things that were in support of his beliefs.
Not
Mm.
necessarily his beliefs in this matter,
Mm.
but in other matters,
Yeah, I've got
which was a reason why he was probably uh, elected through Holy Spirit.
through Holy Spirit.
Yeah. Anyway, this is a big thing from the Vatican. This is, and the Pope. This is a lot more than his iconic "Who am I to judge?"
Yeah,
From a few years ago.
yeah, I remember that. Yeah, and as I say,
Right.
it's a
Yeah.
good sign that we're going in the right direction. Finally.
Yeah. Finally. And now, to we'll stay in the same hoods. To We will go to across the border to Italy. Italy's lower house of parliament approves bill protecting LGBT plus community. Italy's lower house of parliament, on Wednesday. This was in the spring, so this refers to,
Mhm.
I think it was February, late February, early March. Uh, pa- uh, Passed an anti-discrimination bill that makes violence against women and LGBT plus people a hate crime, with those found guilty of such attacks risking longer prison terms. It's good.
Oh,
It's
definitely.
good that it's not like battery and assault, or just another violent crime. They beat up. Yeah, it's it's a hate crime,
Yeah.
not
Uh,
just a violent crime, but a hate crime, which is good.
well, it's a big step
It's
forward.
yeah, a huge leap forward. We should. I believe we should have such such movements forward in many other in every other country.
Yeah. Nobody should ever have to be in fear of, harm or in fear of their lives. Um,
Yes.
and in a lot of countries, that's a very big issue for not just women, but also anybody in the LGBT community.
Yeah.
Is this hatred can lead to severe violence, and as I say, no one should
Yeah.
be in fear of their lives. The law should always be there to protect you. It's part of the Human Rights Code, and it sometimes it's sort of silly that countries have to bring out actual laws against this. It should be something that
Yes.
is already there, is already in place. But it is good
Yes.
to see that
It's indeed,
moving forward. Yeah,
and it's just it's just horrible. And this just reminded me of I need to bring this up because this has a connection to Trans Day of Remembrance we just had last month.
yeah,
Between October 2019, September 2020, 350 murders of trans and gender diverse people were registered worldwide. This is, I think, at 20-ish more than last year. Uh, I I made a live stream reading the list. I'm not going to do it now because it's not the topic for tonight.
mhm,
But I just want to read you the some statistics. It's
that's fine.
62% of those whose occupation is known were sex workers of these 350. 79% of those killed in the USA were people of color. Location of murder: 38% on streets, 22% on residence. Age average 31 years old. Youngest 15 years old. There were two, I think. 50% of those killed in Europe were migrants. 98% of those killed globally were trans women or femmes. There, so you can see the patterns here is minorities of minorities
Exactly.
that are, and all these are, um, yeah, 98% are trans women or femmes. So there we are. They fall under both categories, women and LGBT plus, and
Yeah.
that is why it's important to have legislation like this.
Oh,
But
definitely.
and that is why it's good,
Any number of
more
people
than good
die,
actually.
too many.
Yeah, it's more than good actually to get uh, this kind of legislation in Italy, as well as we should get it in any country, because it should be a hate crime.
Yeah.
But uh, now where are we on my list? So, but now I think I'll be going. Um, yes, Canada reintroduces bill banning LGBT conversion therapy. They introduced it for the first time last spring in early March, but then shit hit the windmill, and it it kind of shut it down, the whole thing. But now it's back. And the article I got this from says, among other things, conversion therapy is any practice designed to change a person's sexual orientation, which especially harms and stigmatizes those belonging to the lesbian, gay, bisexual, and trans community. And in this context, they refer to transgender to be transsexual. But anyway, they are. This would also cover the trans community, which is I mean, as I understand it, they had some resistance from conservatives back in spring, as well as now. Now that they were this autumn, that late autumn, they were reintroducing this conversion therapy. What's on it? Touch on this.
It's an absolutely terrible practice. Is this conversion therapy? It completely is not understanding of even the science behind homosexuality and transsexuality. It's something that the medical profession should not be engaging in whatsoever. Anybody who,
or anyone for that matter.
Well, yeah, anyone. It's you know, if a medical professional is doing these things, then they need to be, in my opinion, they need to be struck off. They shouldn't be, called medical professionals.
And taking their license to practice.
Yeah, exactly. It's an awful practice, and it needs to be eradicated. I didn't read the article in relation to Canada. I read the article in relation to the UK because it's also still legal in the UK as well. And even though the Conservative Party have said that they're going to look into it, and it's an abhorrent practice that they want to get rid of, they still haven't done anything about it. So it's definitely something which is a problem, not just in Canada or in the UK, but it's a problem around the world as well, especially for the viewers who are in America. It's a big problem in their southern states over there as well.
Where it shouldn't be.
Exactly.
Anyway, on to Britain. On my list is same-sex marriage legal. This was from from earlier this year, very early this year. Same-sex marriage legalized in Northern Ireland. The first couple wedded in February. Now that this happened, same-sex marriage is legal throughout the UK. That couple those ladies looked lovely in their weddings. There were some pictures from their wedding and looked lovely. So could you go through what the process was on getting, how did we get from the first proposal of the same-sex marriage bill to where we are now, having finally legalized in Northern Ireland?
Well, I must admit, it was something I didn't actually realise it was still not legalised in Ireland myself. See, I remember when we first legalised it in the UK, and this was back when Elton John was the first person to get the same-sex marriage in the UK, and it was a massive thing. It was all over the media, and I just assumed that that law stuck for the whole of England, well, whole of Great Britain. So I didn't actually realise that it wasn't legalised there. But it's good to see that has finally actually happened now, because because now we can say that Great Britain is, it is fully legalised. And I wish I could put on an Irish accent, because to say something about this, but yeah, I'm glad to see that we finally made that last step, and because yeah, we can actually set an example for other countries to do exactly the same, to start legalizing, and big countries like Great Britain and stuff, which are quite powerfully in the political sector, can make big changes around in other smaller countries.
Okay. Uh, so it was quite a mouthful, on that. So previously you mentioned that you had on your list you had at least the puberty blocker treatments being what is it? Was it banned by the High Council?
Yeah, there was.
What's the shizzle?
Uh, it's not fully banned, from my understanding. It's a court case where it is being ruled against. So, which is obviously then going to set precedents for future court cases, that anybody puts forward. Now, the argument that the courts were trying to use for this was that what was it again? Yeah, so the argument that they're trying to use is that puberty blockers have lasting effects for use in adolescence. So it'll have lasting effects throughout throughout those child's lives, and that the effects are not reversible. Which is just completely untrue and goes against a lot of the medical advice that was given even in that court case. And it completely doesn't take into account the lasting effects that puberty has on someone who has gender dysphoria. And that's going to cause obviously problems for the later on in life, with like suicidal thoughts and self-harm in these people. It, in a sense, it's very backward for the UK, and it is a massive step back, where we were making massive strides forwards in allowing puberty blockers for those under the age of 16. Now we just seem to be going in the completely opposite direction. I would like to see that there is an overrule of this in an upcoming court case, hopefully within the High Court, because the judges on this particular case have made massive error. They've gone against medical advice. They've gone against legal advice. They've gone against all advice to basically put down their conservative views.
Which isn't something I would have. I'm not surprised that some conservatives can get their way with this. In high courts, even in the UK, that I would have assumed to be progressive, in regardless of many archaic forms of operating the country. And as I understand it, the NHS functions somewhat well. and that NHS has covered the transition treatments. Is that correct?
Yes, fairly well over the course of numerous years. Yes. Recently, the NHS has been going a little bit backwards with the treatment, um, in the sense that it's become a lot harder for trans people in the UK to get help on the NHS. Waiting lists have gone up from 1 to 1.5 years, all the way up to between 5 and 6 years.
That's horrible.
Um, so the waiting times it's just become unbearable for a lot of people. Um, Other than that, though, we do have obviously we have it's fully legal, so we've got all of the apart from this new um, sort of ban on puberty blockers for adolescents. Other than that, it's fully legal in this country. It's just the waiting times.
The wait, yeah, it's the waiting times are tough, really tough, wherever that may be.
Yeah.
Before I go on, please ask us questions in the chat, and I'll bring them up on the screen, and then we'll answer them as well as we can. So, how did this puberty blocker banning court case even come about?
Well, it was the Tavistock case. So it came about from basically there was a survey done on GIDS, which I think is the Gender Identity Service for the UK, and they were looking into basically. It wasn't legal to give adolescents under the age of 16 puberty blockers, but this service had been allowing those under the age of 16 to have puberty blockers. Obviously, going off of the medical advice from not just the Netherlands but also the US. Which had done their own study showing that it's absolutely the best course of action for the future life of trans people and for their mental health and obviously then physical health on top of that. So they had been giving puberty blockers out, and I'm not sure how it came about, but there was I think what's happened is some mothers have got together, parents have got together and put a case forward to try and stop this because they don't agree with it. It seems as there was a ruling made that a few years back which said that they shouldn't be giving it to anybody under the age of 16 because they're not consenting. And then it's been brought to court. So there was a couple of cases which were brought up in the actual case itself, which I've looked at, and one of the cases was from a trans woman who had got the puberty blockers, had then gone on to take hormones, had gone through the full transition, then decided that she wanted to go back, and that she wasn't trans, and that she'd made a mistake. And she was trying to argue that she was pushed onto the puberty blockers by this service, and that because she was given puberty blockers, it was then sort of expected of her to then go onto hormones and go through the transition. And the second case was from a mother of a 15-year-old girl, as they put it in the case, who had ADS, and was just running away from her female self to become male.
Mm-hmm.
That's how it was worded in the court case, and the mother didn't agree with this. And
Okay, we have from a question from Susan Brewer. Can you discuss the Canadian situation further? I'm completely in the dark. Yes, we can, dear. So, I think I can pull up the. I think I can pull up the. Whoops!
that as
Yes.
well, because I came at it from the UK angle, so I didn't see the Canadian
Okay.
one, except
Now.
the UK one.
That I squeeze me. I'll just have to dig up the article to share with you. Excuse me. I had it open now. I'm truly sorry for.
Have you found it?
Yes, I do have it on my screen. Just gotta.
Is that the one from the Guardian? I'm reading that now.
No, it's not from the Guardian. No, it's not from the Guardian. There. Now yes, as I read, came, and this is from Reuters. Conversion therapy is any practice designed to change the sexual orientation or the gender identity, and this would include 5 amendments, which include causing a minor go through it, any minor or any person against their will, and profiting of the practice. It's, as it says here, it was earlier this year, but then shit hit the windmill, and we got the pandemic, and some 20% of minority men have undergone some form of conversion therapy, according to government data. So 20% is a lot. It's really, really much. And yes, of course, this will not apply to those who seek guidance and support from counselors and faith leaders.
Yeah.
So basically, from this, I went on to a few other articles, but they are that Canadians are on a very, very good path.
Yeah.
Very good path, because I do not know if there are any other countries. I'm not aware of any other countries.
As I mentioned, the UK is looking into it now, but I think with this year, the way that everything's been a little bit busy.
Not being busy.
Yeah. Politically, it's not been a good year for changes to be made, obviously. No, but I think it needs to be mentioned as well with this conversion therapy. One of the bigger problems with it is it's not just talking. It's not just people trying to convince you that you're trying to cure you through talking therapies. That you're heterosexual and not homosexual. It's also in some extreme circumstances they use aversion treatment such as electric shock treatment and
Yeah,
medication
it's
to
horrible.
so I mean that's like that sort of thing I thought was got rid of by the 1950s, but obviously some people
No,
use
that's not. Yeah, it's still
it.
going on. Half a century since. Oh, it's what?
And that's why it's so important that we need to, that countries are doing this now and starting to illegalize this because
And
I
it
couldn't even
just
imagine having to be put through that on top of all of the other issues that that LGBT people have to go through on a daily basis to then have to go through electric shock treatment or something. That's just
and it's not unheard of. I mean, I think I bet my ass it's still going on. Like electric shocks, etc., are still going on.
I read some uh, data on that earlier actually.
Mm.
Um, it is 2%. So in a survey done of 108,000 LGBT people, it was found that 2% had the treatment and 5% were offered the treatment.
Which is of 108,000. That's over 20,000 were
Yeah,
offered. Out of,
exactly.
yeah, it's shocking, and that that sort of treatment has no business in anywhere.
No,
Not
definitely
in
not.
not now, not in the past, and those saying otherwise are just killing themselves. And it's not politics. It's not politics. It's human rights, and those saying is their rights are being oppressed.
Yeah,
What rights? Being cruel and being being guilty of legal torture.
yeah. And that's what it is. It's torture. I mean, back in the 1950s, they actually did I was reading a study that was done on how effective electric shock was on gay people, and it was found that um, over 90% would go through the electric shock to the point of death.
Yeah.
So it wasn't effective at all. It's completely uh, dark age thinking in the sense of, oh, this person chose to be this way. Nobody chooses to be LGBT.
No.
Nobody chooses that. That you're just born that way, and it's part of your identity. It's who you are. There's no amount of torture that's going to change that for you.
Mm. And yeah, it's just horrendous. But I, I'm happy that at least the Canadians are sensible enough to ban such cruelty.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
unfortunately, there are people who think they have justification to do such things, even in the Western world. And many other countries, all other countries, should ban these treatments because if it's not illegal, who's to say that it's legal?
yeah, exactly. It should
So
just be
that
outright.
because yeah, because I've personally encountered some people that are of the opinion that if it's not specifically made illegal, it's legal.
Yeah,
So
if it's typically illegal, there's loopholes that you can use
yes, if
to
it's
get
not
around it.
technically, if it's not specifically, yeah. And Susan saying, yeah, it's barbaric. It is barbaric.
Yeah.
Uh, and I think even the in the case of the ban on blocker treatment for adolescents,
Mm.
that's torture.
Yeah, exactly.
That's torture.
Yeah, I mean, making someone. I mean, it's not about. They were trying to say in the case that it was about, um, that it was about protecting the child. It was about allowing them to go through puberty so they could make a rational decision. But as you say, that to someone who is trans, that's torture because you've just made them go through changes that are not reversible.
Mm, exactly.
Um,
Go through go through permanent changes, irreversible changes,
yeah,
harmful, hugely harmful, permanent, irreversible changes
yeah,
that
but
cause you emotional pain
exactly.
and increased risk of suicide and attempted suicide.
Whereas the puberty blockers, they aren't making you go through changes. They're just putting off changes from
Mm,
happening until you're able to make an informed decision.
exactly. And then it's hard to explain it to people who are not trans themselves because they just don't get it. And
Yeah,
then there's this conservative cis males, uh, make the decision on such things, and then cause pain and suffering.
yeah.
And yeah,
Um,
uh,
it'll get overturned soon in a court case, upcoming court
yes,
case.
I think there is a court case coming up. I as I was going digging through the news and such the other day. If I remember correctly, we there will be a court case in the High Court trying to overturn
Yeah,
this horrendous decision, which I truly hope will go through.
I have no doubt it will. It goes against quite a lot of what the gender service and everything in this country is actually trying to push for. So
Yeah, indeed. So did so was what else did you have on your list? Did you pick up anything interesting?
yes, so Susan actually mentioned something earlier about in the US. They have the first senator who is first trans senator, which I thought was
Cabinet appointment. I brought it up on the screen.
yeah. I'm not sure if that's what she was talking about, but in the last election, they did vote in. I can't remember her name now. Actually, I did have a name. uh, you, I'll just look that up. I did have a name.
Oh, well, usually people do have names. Mwahaha.
Yeah, Sarah McBride. She's the
Sarah McBride.
state,
Okay.
state trans senator. So that's a big that's a big move because that's the first time it's happened in the US, and hopefully it's going to start making some changes in legislation. Hopefully uh, in the new presidency because
Yeah, and the
from the
new
side of
president actually
Joe
was
Biden.
what? Yes, the new president was flashing something about these uh, new better things to come in the first 100 days or something of his
Yeah,
presidency. So go
yeah.
figure.
He's trying to make some big changes, and
Yeah.
that's a good sign. Yeah. Oh yeah, and I think that's what Susan was getting on. There's also been the first black gay congressman
Uh-huh.
being elected as well. So that's also another big one.
Now, yeah, Biden clap clap has nominated an openly gay man to the cabinet position as well.
Yeah.
Well, that's good. Yeah, I won't go into politics on this one. On
No, I just thought it
as
was a good.
little as possible, but of course we can't avoid politics
Yeah,
when talking about a subject like this.
yeah. No, I just thought it was it's a good news story as far as that we can see that even in a country like the USA, we're still moving in the right direction.
Yeah,
Is
indeed. Uh, please, please ask uh, more questions in the chat. Uh, so there's, yeah, I think even though I don't want to dig too deep into politics. It's necessary to bring up these
mm,
um, openly gay and or trans people in politics because it's important.
yeah.
It's important to see LGBT plus politicians on a national level in any
Yeah.
country, whether
And
it be US, UK, Finland,
yeah.
whichever country.
And I think
Uh,
McBride herself couldn't have put it better. She said on the night that she was elected, she said, "I hope tonight shows an LGBTQ kid that our democracy is big enough for them too."
exactly. Well said. Well said. Now, what else do you have? Did you bring up something more on the list?
Yeah, so I was looking into. I'll see if I can just bring up the close the web page down from earlier, but um, I was looking into the trans people within sports because that was a big issue a couple of years back.
Yes.
Um, Now there was a ruling made by the rugby union that no trans person was to play in the women's rugby leagues, but the RFU, the English rugby league, they decided to allow a trans person against the what the governing body had said,
Hmm.
allow a trans person to play in all English women's leagues. So I thought that was quite a big overturning of quite a large decision, which I think is in the right step in the right direction as far as trans women playing in sport.
It's huge. There's actually there is a ruling from the international Olympic Committee
Mm,
um,
yeah.
from some years back that 2 years after the gender reassignment surgery, you can compete in categories of the reassigned gender in sports under the
Mm,
International Olympic Committee, i.e., all the sports that are uh, Olympic sports.
yeah. Uh, Obviously, I think that there is more research that needs to be done into, um, surrounding when and in what circumstances trans people should be able to engage within sports, because
Mm-hmm.
obviously sports is quite a special case where um, you know you need to get that ruling right. But
Of course.
which is quite why I quite liked the what the RFU had said, because they'd said that they're going to allow trans women to play in the English leagues,
Mm-hmm.
um, while they fund some more scientific investigation into the whole topic, to to get the rulings correct.
Yeah, it's quite curious as to is rugby an Olympic sport?
I'm not sure. Don't know too much
If it
about it.
was,
I think it is.
because if it is an Olympic sport, that would go against the International Olympic Committee ruling.
Yeah. I'm having a look now.
As long as there has been 2 years off from the genital surgery.
Yeah, no. So it says here that the RFU does not currently plan to adopt World Rugby transgender guidelines.
Mm-hmm.
So they're not going against the Olympic Committee.
Right.
According to this article, they're going against World Rugby, which had put their own ruling onto it.
Right. Well, it's against a big union's
Yeah,
rules anyway, which is kind of sucks. But that's and it's always problematic in sports. Uh, anyway, how big of a deal was this ruling in the rugby world? At
quite
least
big,
in the UK.
in the UK, quite a big deal. There's been a lot of fight back against it from
Uh huh.
conservatives who say that it is a step in the wrong direction against women's rights. Um,
Women's rights. Why?
because it is specifically in the case of a trans rugby player, a trans woman rugby player. So having her play in the women's leagues,
Mm-hmm.
they say that it is it's going against women's rights in the sense it's putting the female players in danger from this trans
In
athlete,
danger.
because
With what logic?
that she's a man because she was born male, and because of that,
So
these
there's
irreversible changes that make her stronger, faster, and better than the women in the league. And obviously,
that is bullshit. I mean,
that's the conservative
that is
view.
BS.
Um,
That is BS because the no matter if you're a trans woman, you start taking the testosterone blockers and estrogen. No matter how muscular you are, no matter how much you go to the gym, your muscles will atrophy
yeah.
to some degree. No
The
matter
only big
what,
difference,
those will atrophy no
yeah,
matter what,
the
and
only
your
thing that can't
testosterone
change is
levels are
bone
zero.
structure.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's just uh, it's just I I really don't get it.
mm, yeah. So that was quite a big decision that that got which I think they've made the right decision there to allow this, to show that if anything, just to allow that, um, and allow a bit of sort of an experiment to see, to show the conservatives that it isn't a problem, that it can work.
Yeah, I believe they will reverse this ruling at some point.
Yeah,
At
probably.
some point because they will. as the time goes by, they will get so much BS over this that they have to just, and as well as the ruling of the puberty blockers. They have when it comes to the puberty blockers, they've had so much BS, as well as the rugby
Yeah.
rugby folks. Yeah, LRS. I've never seen rugby in Olympics. Maybe because it's not popular in Finland. Well, who knows? Well, it could be. It's not. It's not in the Olympics.
Yeah, it might not be in the Olympics. All I know from rugby is when the Australia, New Zealand, and England go against each other.
Well,
That's
nothing.
World Rugby League, though.
Mm-hmm. I wouldn't be surprised, and yeah, it's probably the Commonwealth Rugby Union banning
that's it.
this,
Yeah,
because where else do you play rugby other than the Commonwealth countries?
yeah, exactly. Good point.
But it's yeah. So, do you have anything more on your list?
No, that's everything I managed to get through.
Okay, I think
there's
we are going to be wrapping this up in 15 to 20 minutes. So please send us more questions in the chat, and we'll take as much as we can if there are any questions to be answered. How do you think? What do you now that we've gone through our list? We've had big things, huge things on this list from 2020. And now that we are going to be, and now that we'll be wrapping up year 2020, how do you feel, or how do you feel about the LGBT plus year of 2020 as a whole? And are there any specific moments or things that you want to point out above others we've brought up tonight?
I think we've covered it quite well. There's been 2020's been a funny year. There's obviously it's not been the best year for trans rights. There has been some good push forwards, as we mentioned, but there's been also quite a few setbacks, and and also it's been tough as well because there's been certain things on the table which should have gone through, that should have made lives easier for trans people, but with the political situation and the busyness of this year,
Yeah, all kinds of
yeah,
shit.
it's not been the best arena to get for trans right activism.
No, not the least bit.
There's actually a news article that I've come across that I did want to mention, actually, which was from 2 months ago. I've just remembered about it. UK government dropping the gender self-identification plan for trans people, which was something which came out in Theresa May's when she was Prime Minister. It was a plan to allow basically to stop the having to apply for a gender recognition certificate and pay £140 to get the gender recognition certificate, and just allowing trans people to basically be a preferred gender. what they self-identify with, and to do that out from off their own will. But that's been overturned this year, so not good.
Interesting. Yes, not the best of years
No,
in many ways.
yeah, but
Not the least from this perspective.
but it is good to see the amount of celebrities that are either coming out as trans or coming out as gay, but also showing support for people that they know who are, in the LGBT community. There's been loads of news articles surrounding that, and I think that's good. That's that will start to change the attitude on social media with the amount of celebrities that are starting to jump into LGBT rights activism.
Yeah, I see 2020 in this perspective. From this perspective, it's not simple. The answer isn't simple because there are pros and cons. There are positive things, obviously, but there are always, as you said, setbacks like Poland and Hungary, in particular, that we've talked about in this live stream. But however, I would dare to say that in general, I would go for positive for this year. Now, before we go into talking about the coming year, I'll take questions regarding sport from Susan. Regarding sports, so you're saying transition process reduces muscle mass of one transitioning from male to female. Yes, in the lack of testosterone, the bio males have more muscle, and the muscle mass is stronger due to the presence of testosterone. Now, and then due to the lack of testosterone, it weakens, and that's why the International Olympic Committee has ruled that trans women are permitted to compete in women's series after 2 years from the genital surgery, in the way due to the fact that they consider the body to be muscularly close enough to a bio female, so that it would, in that sense, it would be fair game. That's the Olympic Committee reasoning.
I would argue that it's fair. I mean, especially when you look at the differences in athletes, there isn't like a set. This is the strength level of a female athlete, or this is the strength level of a male athlete. There is no set. Everyone is on a range of different ability. So as long as the person has gone through the surgery and is taking female hormones, then that I don't see it. I don't see any issue against that.
Yeah, and then from LRS, like in general, are trans women stronger / faster / etc. than bio women? Sorry, I don't know how to word this, and are trans men weaker, and so on, compared to bio men, part one. And I'm talking about people who start transition after puberty or slash as an adult.
Well, that's a
Well,
good
this is
question.
a bit of a long question, but I kind of gave you an answer on this one. Just a moment ago, answering to Susan's question. But as I said, at least the International Olympic Committee considered it as a fair game uh, after 2 years since from the genital surgery and taking the female hormones, whatever they prescribe, estrogen and probably progesterone.
Yeah. But
So
you also
yes,
have to remember, well,
so not really no. And then the second part of the question, are trans men weaker and so on? No,
no.
no, because as I talked about it earlier in this context, one of many key components is testosterone.
Yeah.
So basically, trans men they take pretty much only testosterone, which causes their muscle growth similar to the
Mm.
puberty of bio male, and when it comes to competing in sports, they the International Olympic Committee's doping chapter. I don't know what it's called, but the one that monitors doping, anti-doping stuff. They have a limit for testosterone
Hmm.
for both female and male categories. For both binary categories, they have limits for the testosterone. And if someone, it could be cis female, and test and have a test taken, uh, and the test might give a reading for too high testosterone, and yeah, that's investigation for further. The same goes for trans men. There is um, upper limit for testosterone, so
No.
it's a fair game because they're tested. If there's any suspicion, they test it.
Yeah. And there's always bound to be as well. There's always bound to be slight changes. There's
Yeah,
slight differences there. But as I mentioned before, there's always differences in biological females and biological males as well. Um,
exactly.
it's always on a spectrum. Now,
Yes.
the bone structure in a trans woman or a trans man is going to be different from biological female or biological male.
Of course.
Um, but that is literally the only difference that there's going to be there is the bone structure is going to be slightly bigger or slightly smaller.
Yeah, and that bone structure also varies
Exactly.
within the binary sex and gender.
And depending what race you are from
Yeah,
the
yeah.
planet as well, that can change. So it's all on a spectrum, and
Mm-hmm.
you can't start to not allow certain people in because they're somewhere else on that spectrum.
Indeed, indeed. I think will be. Oh yes. So for the future, what are you expecting for LGBT plus for year 2021?
Well, if we get past the madness of this year, uh, expecting some of these court cases that went against trans rights to be overturned, that would be nice to see, and to basically just keep pushing ahead, and hopefully, hopefully, some of this hate speech and that against trans people online and such will start to thin out a bit and start to be accepted within society a lot more.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to this. A lot of same things. I really look forward to seeing those those horrible wrong cases just overturned,
Yeah,
and just just so that the Secretariat of State would let Francis say whatever the hell he wants on the all these very positive views on same sex civil union and their right to family.
yeah, of
I
course.
mean, the 1 point something billion Catholics, including the Secretariat of State of Vatican, and the 1 point something billion Catholics should listen to the Pope on this matter. All Catholics and the administration of the Church and the Vatican State should listen to the Pope in this matter.
Yeah,
Give us
he's
give us
done-
the right to family. Give us the right to love.
yeah,
Um, it's the first one of the few times the Vatican has said something sensible, or well, not the Vatican,
the
the
Pope.
the Holy See.
Yeah,
Um, and I'm expecting the Vatican Secretariat of State to come to their senses on the matter at some point. I'm Yes, as I said, I'm expecting to see the court cases overturned, as well as having those horrible leaders from certain European countries to be overturned or thrown out of office,
yeah,
and any position of power, and let the human rights to cherish once more, to flourish in those countries. And I'm really hoping to see the Canadian legislation regarding the treatments, the conversion therapy to or the banning to go through sometime next year. I'm really hoping.
I'd like to see it happen in a few other countries as well.
Yeah, all other countries. I hope the legislation in Italy goes through. Now that um, Elliot Page came out quite towards the end of the year, I hope we will see more positive things from him in this coming year,
Yeah,
and more positive media,
yeah,
positive press through Elliot Page and his posse, and go and throw out, get in Elliot Page, go out J.K. Rowling.
yeah. I definitely wish Elliot, the best of luck in the rest of his life and rest of his career as well.
Yeah, I think this is going to be a book. It's going to have a positive effect on his career,
I surely
because
hope.
now that he has had such positive
Yeah,
reception, it's going to have a hugely positive effect on American trans scene is going to be huge,
Yeah.
as well as the way that media
Yes, definitely.
treats trans people. And this is what I truly hope from
And that
20
coupled with
from
having a trans senator now as well.
yes, indeed.
That's gonna
And
make
this is
big
what
changes.
these are good starting points for LGBT plus year of 2021.
Yeah, I think there will be some massive changes especially in the USA
Hmm.
in 2021.
Yeah.
We'll start seeing some landsliding going on there.
Yeah. As a last comment from for this evening comes from Susan. Yes, a happy family doesn't rely upon gender structure. Love is the key. Exactly, Susan. I agree. Uh, so I think we will be wrapping up this stream uh, now. Uh, I most likely I won't be able to stream for this year, but I will probably be streaming towards the end of next week, but hopefully before that. But I'm working night shifts starting tomorrow, so that's gonna take a lot of time. Anyway, any trans atheist, any closing statements for this for tonight?
I'm not sure actually. Let me think. Yeah. So for anyone who's worried about the bad things that have happened this year to trans rights, try not to focus on the bad things that happen. Focus on the positive and keep always keep positive, because that's how we're going to move forward with trans rights.
I double that. I double that. Now it's time to go. Time to go for tonight. Please like and subscribe, and the link to Trans-Atheist's channel will be in the description box down below, and there will be links to my Discord servers, my channel server Heidi's Corner, and another one called LGBT plus Safe Space, a safe space for all LGBT plus people to chat in on Discord. And if you wish to ask me something, send me feedback, please send me email. The channel email will be in the description box down below, as well as in the channel description on the description tab. Now, once again, please like and subscribe. Thank you, and good night.